Oh God.
That's funny.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Was that you, Richard? I've done some, right?
That's no. I've got to take notes, everybody, and I've just started taking notes about the fluff and the ego. It's important to know.
I've done some shit. That's why she's here. Thank you.
Yeah, right? There we go.
Yeah.
Trust me, I got a bunch of fancy degrees and a bunch of student loan debt. I've done some shit. Because I got to pay for that stuff.
The chat is lighting up. You didn't know,
This
Kia.
is great. This is great.
So
I'm telling
Great
you,
confidence to move forward with. It's actually a good line to live with.
it's true. So had we been in Boston, I would have told you two things. One is that you're talking to students of interior architecture, landscape architecture, and design studies. So that's the first thing. The second thing is all BAC students are expected at some point during their academic studies to get a job working in their field. So learning from work and connecting that to what they're learning in the classroom. And so that makes us different from every other program in the nation that might have co-op or might have something like that. This is where they're really employees, they're being paid, and they don't leave a job after 4 months. They keep working to see the project through to completion. They get health benefits like a regular employee, like that. Anyway, those are the two things you need to know about us. I'm gonna let Denise start if you want.
Okay.
I think it's time.
Yeah, it's time.
And
It's
Anna,
time.
would you record?
We were recording.
It's recording.
It is
Yeah.
recording.
Oh, good.
All set.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thanks,
Very good.
Anna.
So I am excited for this lecture. And so it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's fall 2020 lecture series speaker, Kia Weatherspoon. ASID is after her name because she has been and is a member of ASID and has served on the ASID National Board. She's also the founder of her own design firm, Determined by Design, based in Washington, D.C. She is a national speaker, so the BAC is not the only place that she's speaking at. She's speaking, I believe you have 2 or 3 speaking gigs this week at various places. She has also this year, she's received a prestigious award from IIDA. She's received the Ana Hernandez Luna Texel's Visionary Award, which honors a woman in business, a woman business owner making valuable contributions to the design industry. She is also a U.S. Military veteran, so she's served the design industry and she's served our nation. And so it's my pleasure to welcome Kia for tonight's lecture, Design Equity Without Labels, Strategies for All People.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully I did okay.
Denise. You did good, you did good, you did good. So if you can't tell, I like to have fun when I speak. I know it's virtual, it's Zoom, but we're gonna have a good time, a dialogue. I'm gonna pull up a presentation, but that's just to keep me on track, because if you can't tell, I can get a little sidetracked and whatever. But here we go. So I wanna talk a little bit about my story and how I got to design before I kick off this presentation. And I'm gonna give you the condensed version, right? I came to design from 2 experiences. The first was my brother was incarcerated for 15 years when I was a sophomore in high school. So that started this 15-year journey of going to prison institutions. It was probably around year 3, I was like, oh my God, this is a shitty experience for me, right? It was probably the next year I started looking around. I was like, yo, there are a lot of kids up in here coming to visit their dads, right? And I was like, this has to be a shitty experience for them too. Then the next year I'm like, man, look at these men in here, right? Black, brown, men of color. Then I started thinking about the staff and I was like, yo, they work in here sometimes every day, 12 hours a day. They serve a life sentence right through their job. And that just stuck with me. That was a very powerful moment and experience for me. And I didn't know what it was, but I just remember thinking, this is indignified. Fast forward, I went to college for something else, and then I didn't get financial aid. And I said, I'm going to join the military and get money for school. And in my very naive mind, I said, I'm going to join the military. I'm going to get money from the school. I'm going to get stationed on the East Coast, and I'm going to serve my country during the day. And at the time, my major was dance, and I'm going to dance at night, and all is right with the world. Very, 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 very cute. I got stationed in Wichita, Kansas at McConnell Air Force Base. Nothing kicks ass without tanker gas. And then shortly after that, I got there in August of 2001. Shortly after that, September 11th happened. One sec. That's my dog, Jasmine, sorry. September 11th happened, and I was on my first of 5 deployments to the Middle East. And during that time, I was 19. I had never been away from my family out of the country. And I was in a bare basin in a tent with 14 other women. And I wanted to cry so bad. And I was a very prideful little 19-year-old girl. And I wasn't going to cry in front of those women. So I took some sheets, I hung it from the top of my tent, and I made 3 sheet walls. And that was the first space I ever created. And I bawled like a baby for 15 minutes. And it was something about how that space healed me, and it brought me solace, right? And that stuck with me. So when I got out of the military, I was like, I want to do this thing where I create spaces for people. I think Google existed then, and I might have Googled it, but that led me to interior design. And while these stories may sound cool, when you start to unpack how Black and brown people come to the design profession, a lot of times it's these traumatic experiences. They're like, oh my God, that's so cool. No, did you just hear what I said? I had to go to jail and hold war to find out spaces matter. And if that's my experience, what type of experience are happening for people in their homes, and how are they labeled? And that's what got me to through my business around this idea of what is design equity, and how do we design without these labels for equal design outcomes in all settings? Yes, 2001, someone said in the chat. So I try to watch the chat as I talk. I think that's the benefit of being this Gen X. We can like see 16 things at one time. So please, at any time, ask questions, raise your hand. I'll be kind of tracking that. So in the process of starting my business, I started my business in 2012, and the first thing I did was a nonprofit project. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, start a business, do free work, but just go with me. The first project I did was for domestic violence survivors, 12 women and 32 children. I approached them, and I was very excited and exuberant and like, we're gonna design your spaces. And they were like, first of all, sis, calm down. And of course, they were all women of color. And they literally started to say, we don't need this. What you're providing is not for us. This is not relevant to our lives right now. And then it transitioned from, I was like, okay, how do I take them through the design process and make them realize their space matters, it impacts their lives, design matters. So we took them through the design process, and it went from, we don't need this, to, wow, someone would do this for us. I thought I could only see this on TV. Is this something I could do one day? And when we finished the project, the woman said to me, not that the space was pretty, which it was, but she said, Ms. Kia, when I walked into this room, I realized change was possible for me. And right then I knew the people who need access to well-designed spaces the most, they don't know they don't have it, they don't know they need it, and they don't have an advocate. So I've built my entire practice around being that advocate. And what I found is we are too busy labeling people based off of those socioeconomic demographics that we can't design for them as people, which requires us to remove all the labels so we can design for all. A big part of that starts with where we focus is at affordable and supportive housing. That's where a lot of our work is. And one of the things that we started to notice is the language, the way people who develop housing, the way they talk about low-income people and people of color is, we can't add anything new to these types of projects. We got to secure these buildings like institutions and or prisons. And this last one is stripping a design bare because they're not making any money on the deal, right? Who does that affect? That developer or that community, right? So this mindset stays in the psyche of affordable housing developers and design. And I'm gonna start picking on folks now. So we have 2 chairs here, right? So let's think about it. We're designing an office space, maybe in an affordable housing building in the leasing center in the lobby, right? You go in, you meet with the rental agent, and you need a guest chair. I'm gonna pick on Katie, because I see you, Katie Becker. So Katie, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself, and then I want you to tell me which one of these chairs, and describe it for me, would you think is appropriate for a leasing office environment in a multifamily building? This is not a trick question, be honest.
The one I would pick is the one on the right. I think
black or white one or brown?
The brown one.
Okay,
I
all right.
It's more stylish and has more of an identity, and it's more unique.
All right, Katie, kill it. All right, Octavia, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself. And we are now looking at a senior apartment, senior living, right? And we need to specify a senior chair, a chair that is suitable for old people. Which one of these chairs do you think is the most applicable for that environment?
Definitely the one on the left, because the one on the right has a little bit less uncertain. You might fall or trip over it, or like, miss your
So the
seat.
one on the right has the black arms, is that the right?
No, the one on the left that looks like a classic kind of easy chair.
That's your senior chair.
Yeah. Is that wrong?
All right, moving. It was not right or wrong. These aren't trick questions, I promise. All right, we're going in the main lobby of an office, and we need to pick a chair. And I am gonna pick on, let me see, Lynn. I see you, Lynn. Which one of these chairs do you think is appropriate for an office environment? Tell me the color, light gray, dark gray, gold, silver base, which one?
The light gray, I would say.
Okay, all right.
It looks a little less comfortable.
That's not a great reason to pick a chair, but we're just gonna stay with that, right? So here's the thing. Why are these chairs labeled, right? We've had manufacturers, industry tell us this type of product can be used in this type of setting, right? If that's constantly beat into our minds, it's only applicable for this use, then doesn't that limit our selections and our choices? Doesn't that limit how we can design differently because they're marketed to us as one way? And I want us to think about that, right? If that's the case for furnishings, is it not the same case when we get into what design outcomes should be for people in all communities, right? All right, so we're gonna do some more calling on people. Kyle Mullaney, I see you. I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself. And then here we have a picture of a space. I want you to do 2 things for me. Tell me what type of project you think this is, and then who do you think this space is for?
Yeah, the first thought would be that it's almost like it's a commercial space in terms that, I think many different people will use it. I think it could even be more of a community space within like a larger building. So I would guess that, coworkers or people occupying the bigger space would end up using this sort of smaller working space.
Okay. Justin, is it Prophet? I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself, and I want you to tell me what type of space, project type do you think this is, and who is it for?
Looks like the living room. Excuse me. It looks like a living room in someone's home.
Okay. What type? So multifamily or just residential?
Let's say multifamily.
Okay. Aaliyah Hollis, I see you right under Justin. Who do you think this project is for in this space?
It looks like a study space. I don't know where necessarily it would be, but it just looks like a study space.
Okay. Oh, we got one more. Nicole Casson, I see you. Who do you think this space is for and what type of project?
I think this also looks pretty residential, dining room, living space. So for multifamily.
Cool beans. So here's the deal. These are all affordable housing projects, right? And there's clearly a stark contrast between what you see on the top left and bottom right, right? And what's the disconnect? And all these projects have been built within the same time frame. What you see on this bottom left here is what is notoriously known as the multi-purpose room, right? This type of space is inadequate. I think it was Aaliyah who said this is a study room. I wouldn't want to study in a room like this, right? This is another multifamily community area. You see these arbitrary colors and design elements, but why? This particular project here in the top left is senior affordable housing. This idea of that, it's not that every project should look the same. It's based off of the community and the location. These two are inadequate. And I want you to remember that. Obviously, these two we designed. I'll put that out there. So a big part of this, it comes down to community, right? And how do you define community? And for me, community is about fellowship, sharing a common attitude and interest in goals, right? So you have to be constantly in this mindset that we design for communities. And the minute we start to add these labels, affordable, workforce, low income, market rate, all we're doing is identifying ways that we are not in common. And sometimes those labels, we can kind of dress them up, but if you reduce them to what they really are, a lot of times it boils back down to race, right? If you look at the social economic gaps between people of color and non-people and whites, it's drastic. So these identifiers in design that constantly separate us or segregate us do us a disservice. Here's an architectural project. Literally, I could walk to it from my house. It's called Kids Space. And obviously, it's a kid's space. And what an architect did here is says, this is a kid's space. So we have to use these primary colors, a very juvenile block in this space to make sure that we understand it's a kid's space. But the architectural vernacular of this community is very historic. And this type of blatant labeling of what a design should be for children has disrupted this entire streetscape. And when we do that, right, we see people, we don't see people, we don't see what's possible, we see their labels. And that type of thinking and design keeps us pigeonholed. So how do we start to see the people, right? We have to acknowledge it. We already talked about that. Even if it's uncomfortable, we have to acknowledge that these labels exist, right? But then it also starts with our language. I hate phrases like end user, the people, or the built environment, or their space, or their community, right? We should be using more phrases like people and we. Whenever we talk to our clients or we're talking about a project, we're saying we, our community, right? Not theirs. It's that type of language that is constantly keeping us disconnected and realizing that we are designing for people. It's not the built environment, it's human spaces. So the more your language is constantly about joining, the better. And this is where this repetition of these small tweaks in your language, it really matters. Because what we're trying to do is create a greater connection, right? And greater connection leads to empathy. I know for certain that interior design is the greatest form of empathy in practice. But in order to do that, we have to start with a design concept. And I know, it's various design majors here adjacent, right? And for me, a design concept is an empathetic approach to and for the creation of elements, spaces, and materials translated from historical community context, right? And what did we say community is about? The people. So concept equals people, right? I want to walk you through one of our projects that we worked on here in DC. It's called Berry Farm. It's one of the largest and oldest public housing redevelopments happening here in Washington, DC. And for us, this is how we start our concept process. And as you're looking at this concept imagery, I want you to know you don't see pictures of other people's interiors, right, as our guideposts. These are all historic elements and moments specific to this project. So one of the things you see in the top left, if you know anything about DC, it's really big on go-go music. And this is the Junkyard Band, a very prominent go-go band here in Washington, DC. They also grew up in Berry Farm. One of these other photos, this other photo you see here is Howard University, The Yard, right? It was named after Howard Schultz. He was one of the brainchilds of the Berry Farm redevelopment after the war. Then also the community that this project is located in is called Hillsdale, right? So it has this subtle topography of these hills and rolling dales, right? So it's this subtle ascension. Go-go music is all about sight, touch, sound. It's a sensory experience. Anacostia used to be the centralized fishing port for this community. So all these things of touch, sight, sound, point, center, elevation, that became our concept of opening the senses to ascension. So every design element was truly this sensory experience that moved your eye up and throughout the space. So here's a rendering of this space. So one of the things that we talked about was, again, how do you touch that plane? So we started to create these kind of weaving hills and ascension movements on our ceiling. Always touch your ceiling, look up. But what you start to see on this wall, this is where that interactive and storytelling piece comes from, right? So when cities are gentrifying or revitalizing, right, it's always this idea of, are you getting rid of the story of the community? So one of the things that we did is we created this emotion activated wall feature where the more people move throughout this space, the names of historic and prominent fixtures from the community light up on the walls. So no matter how this community turns in 5, 10, 15 years, you will still see the historical context of this community as you walk through this space. There's some other interactive historical touch points where we've worked with a videographer to capture true stories of current residents. But design for equity is about maintaining those stories for all people. Michael Chaucer, you didn't bring me no dinner. You just got a plate delivered to you. Must be nice. This is another project we're working on. It's called Archer Park Apartments. It was here in Southeast DC, Ward 8. And one of the things that always happens is, you know, developers will name these projects after people, and they don't get any historical context or reference. So Archer, who the building was named after, was Romulus Cornelius Archer. He was the second Black registered architect in the district. And if that's not a great narrative, I don't know what is, right? You have a building named after a Black man who built and designed buildings. So one of the things that we started to do was we immediately had to develop a design concept. And we went around the city and took pictures of all of Mr. Archer's work. We pulled some common architectural elements and details and moments from his buildings, and our concept became centered on symmetrical contrast. So all of our design elements was about centering your eye, these elevated and tiered moments. We even started to use his actual buildings as enlarged digital wall coverings, right? So every design decision that we made was about this community-based story. And we do that so there is a greater connection. So in this particular building, there are other kind of digital installations where there's a little placard on the wall that talks about Mr. Archer and his contribution to the district. And how do you inspire the next wave of architects and designers is by saying, here's a man who looked like you, and this building is named after you, so it is possible. And we created this elevated experience for you. And I want to touch on one thing here. This particular developer, they had never used a separate interior design consultant on their affordable housing projects. And they fought me tooth and nail about soft seating and making everything all vinyl. And it's these types of conversations of who deserves what that we are constantly challenging in design. And I think this is important for us because the developers are only thinking about the operations cost and the longevity of it. But our job as designers and architects is we have to do that to design for community. We have to keep that community narrative and story at the forefront of our minds all the way in the beginning of the schematic design process. And remembering, even if our clients do not, the asset is the people, right? And when we talk about the asset and the people and the community, this is where that diversity and equity piece come in, right? This is where the design equity comes in. This is where community comes in. And for community to be present, you need to see all people at the table. And fortunately or unfortunately, community is built by commonalities. So let's imagine for a second, we are a developer and we got this project and you've got to do your community meeting, right? And you go into the community meeting and here comes the developer and this their all white development team. And then here comes the architectural partner. It's the all white architecture team. And then you turn around and you look at the community meeting and it's all people of color. That is a blatant disconnect. And if you are not being ever present and thinking about how are we presenting as design professionals to communities, are we fostering this idea of commonality amongst our teams? This is where diversity matters. And I think we have to think about it that these labels are diminishing even how we build our design teams. So it has to be about community engagement. It has to be about mentorship, and we're gonna come to that. So for us, community engagement, it doesn't mean just hiring a minority-led design firm or sub-consultant. It's being intentional in partnering with artisans, educational institutions, nonprofit organizations, bringing them into that dialogue, not just to win the project, but to also immerse them in the design process. Because one of the things that everyone's talking about right now is how do we create more diverse teams? And it has to start with this engagement in design. Very, very key, right? So we need to be intentional. It also includes mentorship. I think everywhere you look, everyone's talking about diversity in design, lacking diversity. And unfortunately, the pipeline to alleviate this lack of diversity, it doesn't exist yet because there is not mentorship consistently happening, not just at the collegiate level, but at the high school and the grade school level. So one of the things that we do at Determined by Design, wherever we have a project, we like to partner with educational institutions in various stages and have 2 to 3 students engage in the design process, immersed in it, whether they're an architecture major, whether they are a psychology major, it's bringing diverse voices to the table. Maybe they're at a technical high school, maybe they're in an arts class in middle school, but the key is mentorship and building that foundation and having diverse experiences and truly the people from the community engaged in the design process. Okay. And I'm going to show you one quick video, and then I think I'm doing great on time. And then I'm going to open this up for questions. So bear with me while with Fort Riley, Kansas. Yes, Kansas was a very special place. Very special. I was in Wichita, which is where Dorothy is from. I always think that was quite comical. Are we having fun, guys? Are we still having fun? Yeah. Okay. I see you, Russell. Russell, that was a quick head nod. And Denise mentioned I do quite a few speaking engagements.
Good, how are you? I'm okay. So I saw
We're in somebody's whole conversation. We're not gonna tell them. Let's be nosy. All right, I'm gonna share the screen. There we go. on the door. This is a programmatic request.
Oh.
It's also a bias that plagues affordable housing. The design solution to meet this need has been indignified for years. This was a design solution. An octagonal leasing office wall with windows. This type of solution is sharply reminiscent of the pan-octagon design used in prisons. There is no space for this type of solution in affordable housing. An alternative approach would have been an asymmetrical wall with storefront that would allow space for soft seating, art, and possibly a decorative finish. More importantly, a school-aged boy would not have to feel like coming into his front door, he needed to be watched. He will be met with plexiglass at the local corner store, the local post office, and banks. He will be met with this same watchful eye in retail stores, and unfortunately, at his home. This is why design equity matters. And I like to share that video because when we're talking about the context of interior design, a lot of people think it's just about the furniture and the finishes, but it's really looking at the spaces that we are designing from the inside out right now. How will they affect generations of people to come? This is why we have to remove the label and focus more on community, people, and equal design outcomes. And as that's a close of my formal speech, and I would love to open this dialogue and have a true candid discussion. Thank you, Octavia. I appreciate it. I appreciate the applause. And I'm gonna tell you guys, you probably got the most lit speaker right now because I just got a project. So you can ask me whatever you want right about now. So let's have at it. Let's have at it.
Quick question. As far as
yeah. Hi, Wig. Nice to meet you.
To meet you too. As far as to go with the projects, is that something you do with the government or other partnerships that you have? The main reason why I got into this was, you know, we come from the same background. We're both veterans, and we have a lot of homeless veterans. You know, that's the main reason why I'm doing this, and that's something that I would like to get into. You know, as soon as I'm done, trying to design, you know, spaces for veterans. Doesn't have to be anything big, but stuff like that, you know?
Oh, great question. So this is what happens, right? I tell people I do affordable, low-income housing in poor community. Like, oh, do you do nonprofit work? No, I make money, a lot of money, right? It just so happens to be that my focus is on the community for people who look like me. So we are working on, and I've yet to find a project where I could connect my true veteran experience. And you know what base housing looks like. It's that military brown, right? So I'm gonna get there, I'm not there yet, but don't worry, we're gonna fix that. So we're working on a project in Arlington, Virginia, and our client is a nonprofit housing developer called APA. And American Legion Post 139, and with, you know, if you hear American Legion Post, you think old white man from Vietnam with hats and pins drinking beer, right, and complaining, right? So American Legion Post 139, they owned their building and they owned the land. So they partner with APA, right, this nonprofit housing developer, so APA could build affordable and veteran housing on top of the post land, right? So for me, the affordable housing component is key, yes, money, but then also it allows me to bring the veteran component back to as well, because how do we, and the history of the American Legion Post is so rich and it's so layered, right? But today's veterans, we ain't going there, right? You have a whole new crop of veterans who wouldn't even think about making a post their home. So we're changing the way this particular American Legion Post will be designed. So hopefully it'll set the standard for veterans and post homes going forward, right? So the key to figuring out how to do this work is look for non-traditional avenues and routes, right? You're not going to see a lot of design firms that have their shingles out there that say, I do veteran housing, right? So this is where you'll have to get creative, looking for nonprofit developers who do housing, community organizations who focus specifically on veteran needs, right? A lot of collegiate universities. There is this big push for veteran housing, but the bigger challenge and question is here, why do we have to segment our housing? Why can't people just live together, right? You got the affordable building, the market rate building, the workforce building, right? We have all these identifiers to housing, and it's really just to say, you live in the ghetto building. If we really simplify it, right, what's workforce? Are you better because you live in the workforce building and I live in the affordable building and you live in the poor veteran building or the luxury veteran building? We should be approaching design for people, not demographics. But we are doing some work specifically with veterans, and I'm very, very excited about that post project. And I'm going to be honest, I got it because I was a veteran. And my architectural partner, they were kind of salty, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Any more questions? Thank you for the applause, Katie. I appreciate it. Wait, is that an Army photo or Air Force photo? No judgment.
Army. Spent 10 years in the Army.
Sorry. All right, Richard, I see your question. I see your hand.
So thank you so much for changing the conversation about interior design. I am inspired and proud to have you at the BAC. I'm the Dean of Students, by the way. And you led with this little thing like, I just got a commission, but I'm gonna ask you either I wanna hear about that, or I always wanna ask, what's your dream commission? Right now, if you could have anybody come knock on your door, ask you for a job, what would it be?
All right, so we're two things, right? So I do a lot of housing. I'm gonna change the way prisons are designed. That is my dream project right now, a male prison facility. In my undergraduate thesis, it was a male prison facility. And I'm trying to, it's a subtle leap, right? If you think about who's in shitty low-income housing, right? You live in shitty low-income housing and maybe an impoverished community. Where do you think most of those people end up? In a shitty jail, right? And if you look at the recidivism rate, people come in and out. So you're going from poor housing, crappy prison. It's a cyclical effect, right? So my dream job right now would be taking this holistic approach to reimagining how the interiors of prisons are designed. And there's an organization out there that is like architects who won't design prisons. That's cute, but not realistic, right? It's $1 billion industry. It's going to continue to exist until someone inserts themselves and disrupts it. And I think what happens is you have these 45-plus-year-old white men designing institutions and houses and spaces that they have no connection to even try to strive to do better or something different. So that would be like the ideal project right now. But to be fair, I love all my projects. And the project that we just won in Boston, we have 3 projects in Boston right now. It's Whittier Place. Karen, you know that one, right? So it's the last high tower building in that development that we are designing. We're also with POA, Preservation for Affordable Housing. We're also working with the community builders on 250 Center. It's another affordable housing project. And then we're also working on a project called 125 Amory. It's a renovation. It looks like poo-poo. And even the developer was like, did we do anything here? But so those are the projects that we're working on in Boston. Whittier Place, I will be reaching out to you all because that integrated collegiate and student approach from the college to high school and the middle school level, we are going to be looking for folks on the ground to be engaged in that process, not just in interiors. I think I heard there was some landscape architects in here as well. But in this particular client, they want to engage us. So it's the money. We have a team member who's in Boston. I did tell Denise this recently. We are hiring. and we need someone to support our local Boston team member who's a star. She's a beast of a young designer. But that's what we're doing in Boston right now, Richard. I hope that answered like a lot of questions.
That was great. Thank you.
Hi, Jazz. I see your hand.
Hey,
Yeah,
Kia. Yes.
I'll let Jazz
Yes, Karen. Please, rain on my parade.
Yes, you first.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, Kia. What a great, fun 40 minutes. You really kind of kicked it right back into me. That's amazing. So question on, you seem to be, attached to a lot of incredibly unique and worthy and much needed architectural and design work, for a city like, and for a place like New England. Can you talk a little bit about the logistical journey with the people you connect with? Like, how hard is it to get the right groups together, to get the funding in place, and like, I'm sure it's not as easy as just being awarded something, the bidding process, like how does that all come together for someone with an architectural, like someone of your experience? Like, what is that journey like to finally get that approval to try to go ahead and move forward?
All right, cool beans. So here we go. Rowan, I see your question. Rowan, Elliott, I got you covered. Don't worry, it's coming. So here's the thing, right? I was having this conversation with a big architecture firm, Studios Architecture. I'm pretty spoiled. You know how I get all my deals and projects? I take out the middleman, right? I go straight to the source of the money, which is the developer. A lot of times you'll have to put your qualifications, a fancy way of saying portfolio, to the city agencies with a team, right? So we'll have to respond to an RFP. Screw all that. All that's red tape. I go to the developer. I reach out to them multiple times. I tell them what our value add could be as a firm. And then I say, I want to get on this deal, right? It's kind of like how you guys look for jobs. Here's your resume. Here's your portfolio. Hire me. Here, I wrote you a fancy, like I like to simplify things because, Jazz, that's what I've done. And I don't know if that was I didn't know 8 years ago. I didn't know if that was the right or wrong way. I knew this is developer Dante's Partners. I want to work with him. So I reached out to them 7 times in a week to be like, I really want to be on this deal, right? So for me, to get on the deals that I'm on, it's the clients. I make sure it's clients and partners I want to work with, right? And then I research the hell out of them. So, and I put Google alerts on them. And if they don't respond, and then I get a Google alert, I respond again and again and again and again, right? So I'm constantly being very strategic in the teams I want to be on. I take out the architectural partner. I take out everyone else and go to the source who writes the check, and I get that meeting and I sell my value, right? I don't sell, make design better because it's good for the people, right? I sell, hey, your GMP, right? This goes, Rowan, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. This goes to your question. How do you work with the developers who are looking to keep their projects cheap, right? So here's the thing. Developers care about dollars, and that's cool. No shade, no disrespect to them. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So as a design firm, right, an interior design firm, our value add to a developer is, on one of our very first projects, our architectural partner specified a bunch of arbitrary architectural finishes, right? We're not even going to talk about the design. It was shit, but that's fine too, right? But they just had overpriced finishes. So we came into the project late where they already had a permit and stamped drawings on site. We completely changed the space plan. We changed every finish. We added decorative lighting, wall covering. So we ended up having 11% more architectural finishes, and cost for cost from what our architectural partner originally specified, we were 6% cheaper. That's how I get on the deals. That's how we convince these developers that design is not about being expensive. Is we had a concept, we were intentional with our selection of materialities, and we forced transparency. We're working on a 100% affordable housing project here in DC called Capitol Vista. All new construction, 104 units. Is everyone familiar with the value engineering process? Kind of, a little bit, kind of, sort of. right? All right, so here's value engineering, the very quick version. Your parents give you an allowance to go buy an outfit, and you say, I'm gonna go to Saks Fifth Avenue. You take your money, you're gonna go to Saks, and then your mom's like, what are you doing? You don't got this type of money. So you gotta value engineer your whole outfit. So then you gotta go to Target, Marshall, and maybe off Saks, right? That's value engineering, right? So in affordable housing, a multi-million-dollar deal, whether it's affordable, a hotel, a Class A office building, there is always value engineering. On our project, we did not have to VE out one decorative fixture, finish, texture, or interior element. Why? Because we forced the transparency from our general contractor. We designed with a concept and intentionality. And when anyone said, that light fixture is $20,000, no, it's not. You just marked it up 6 different ways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull that procurement from you, and we're gonna purchase it, right? And then as a design firm, my client is gonna get our cost. And one of the biggest disconnects in our industry is this markup mentality. Why are things marked up like 6 different ways, from the manufacturer to the dealer to the subcontractor to the purchasing? And it's like 6 markups makes it unaccessible. So we say, fuck that, we'll purchase it, and my price is your price. Why? And guess what? We do it and we still make money, right? So when people are like, oh, you do affordable housing, do you need a donation of some material? No, motherfucker, our shit is lit. It's not about using materials less than, it's about being in, and yes, my language is very, very colorful, people. I'm not sorry, but I get so worked. I don't have time to clean it up because there are a bunch of projects that we're not working on. So when you all hit the field in your job, I need you to be this fired up to challenge everything that we said. I saw a question. Is the person who solely does value, is there a person who solely does value engineering? I love, Aaliyah, we ain't bargain shopping, honey. We're not gonna bargain shop. We just got to design, right? We've got to be designed with intentionality. But so Jazz, back to your questions. That's how we get on the deal. Right? I can go, and I can't wait for this.
But how do you really feel? How do you truly feel? Not on the core.
That's how I feel.
But to go back, like 6% is no joke. I mean, if you're saving a client that money, that's a lot of cake, man. I mean, that's a significant amount.
And I had to get off my high horse of, hey, pretty guys, come on, design equity. No, you want to save dollars? I can design to your dollars. Period, point blank, end of story. That's what we do well and exceptional. I don't know how we're doing on time for more questions.
Thank you.
How do you keep your good energy and work practice in the pandemic? You know, Karen, my energy ebbs and flows. Can we get real for a second? Let's get real. So to be a small business owner, right? Your mental health has to be legit. And like 2 years ago, like I was super depressed, had really bad anxiety. And the first time ever in my adult life, right, I had a dangerous thought. And I said, oh, sister, you need to get your whole ass in therapy, right? And then I also started thinking about like some of my interactions with my clients, and if something wasn't going my way, I would get mad. I was like, okay, that's not about them, that's about me. So in order to advocate for other people and to do better, I had to be whole and healed and working on myself constantly. So thankfully, 24 months prior to the pandemic, I was in therapy once a week, right? And to be a business owner, you have to be constantly checking yourself. So I think in this pandemic, I've done that legwork, right? So in business, it's always gonna be something, a pandemic, a dead market or whatever. But if I'm constantly working on myself internally, right, then I can ride some of these things out. Do I have down days? Absolutely. Do I have days where I'm still anxious? Absolutely. I think mine is showing up where I'm just not eating healthy. Like the other day, I had a short stack of Ritz crackers and Cheez-Its for lunch. And I was like, I need you to act like a whole adult and fix yourself some food. I think it shows up in different ways. And then also give yourself grace. Like I have to always be doing something, but it's also, I love my work. I love my work. I love my clients. I choose to do that. I had to fire a client today and I was like, don't want that money. I was like, not at the cost of my mental health. That's how I stay excited about my work, and there's still shitty design outcomes happening. So that's how I stay excited.
Hey,
Actually,
Kia.
I worked on a, yes. Hi, Isaiah.
Oh, hey, how you doing? This has been so inspiring to hear your story and stuff like this. But I've been at my firm. I'm in school to be an interior design. Architect. But I'm at an interior design firm in Greensboro, North Carolina. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, we're a company full of middle-aged white women, and there's only 2 men there, and one's, in his 60s, and the other one's me. So I've been trying to shake some things up there. I've been trying to plan things in the background, and I know I'm only a junior designer, but do you have any tips, I guess, or places to start to, maybe it's the connections with the different organizations in my community, because we have a huge homeless community. That's a big demographic in Greensboro, and that's one of the things that has hit my heart mainly.
So here's the deal, right? And never use language like I'm just a junior designer. Use language like, yo, I'm the future of this industry, and those middle-aged white women, they're gonna retire or die. So don't diminish yourself, right? Just call a spade a spade. That's what it is, right? And I think if you've been able to assess, and if you've been respectful, honest, and if you've approached them with, I'm not just trying to critique, but provide solutions and a plan, right? I think when you say it's different where you guys could do this better, as opposed to, you know what, I found a place where we can be a greater value add to our clients, to our communities, so forth and so on. And then you lay out a possible plan for how this could be executed, and then say, I would love to discuss this day, and maybe, if there's some next steps, how can I lead that charge? Because I really think it could be advantageous to this business, right? And this is the thing. If you've done all your due diligence, right, and your homework, and you've created this plan, and if they don't come back with some type of wow, Isaiah, this was great. You know what, let's figure out a way. There's some more we need to unpack, then that's not the right firm for you. And I think the cool thing that makes me excited is this generation, and I don't mean age, right? This next wave of designers, I think there is this more intentionality for community impact. And unfortunately, a lot of design firms that you guys are going to end at, they're not rocking with that. And that's okay. This is when I say, look for, at one of my clients, they have a corporate interior designer that oversees all their affordable housing projects. And I think look for other ways to engage with developers, community organizations, even in the facilities department, right? A lot of homeless shelters have some type of facilities lead or person that are managing those assets. Insert yourself into those types of organizations. Think outside of the mold of your traditional design firm.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do, is just saying, I wanted to get my game plan together first before I came to them, just so I knew I had my ducks in a row. And
but that's what you got to do. Have a plan.
Yep.
Someone said, you said you make a lot of money. Talk about why that's important. Because find me a lot of firms led by a woman of color, young, perceived young, and making a lot of money. That's why it's important that I make a lot of money, right? It's important so one, I can pay my team very well, right? Two, it's to prove that a Black woman can lead a creative firm and make a living, turn a profit, right? And still do community and mission-based work. When I tell people I do equity and housing, they're like, oh my God, do you do free work? No, fool. I haven't done a free project since 2012, right? So I talk about money. And as women, a lot of women don't want to talk about money. The deal, I'll tell you all about my numbers. The deal that we just closed today is $150,000, right? $88,000, that is $88,000 is our design fees, right? And it's really to start talking about the numbers, the money. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And I'm a Black business, a Black-led business working on multi-million-dollar deals in multiple cities, Boston, DC, Chicago, Richmond, right? So that's why the money piece is very, very important. And as women, we should talk more about money. So that's why I always make a point to that. How do you maneuver? Is someone going to tell me if I'm not good on time, right? Okay.
You have 4 minutes, Kia.
Oh, what? Okay. How do you maneuver your approach to value engineering if there are project labor? Labor unions. Is it Eliza? So we're dealing with this right now. And unfortunately, okay, this is what we're talking about. So tile, you think about a building that has 200 units. There's tile in the lobby, there's some sparkly accent tiles, and then there are 200 units. Some of them have 2 bathrooms, and there's tile on the floor, there's tile on the wall, there might be a backsplash. That's a lot of tiles. So one of the things that we try to do is, who is technically the last person that's gonna touch that tile? It's the subcontractor. And this is where designers miss the mark. If we specify all that tile with 17 different vendors, we're asking probably a minority-owned subcontractor to go to 17 different vendors, 17 different lines of credits, payments, blah, 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 right? I think as the designers, we have to think, why not get the tile all from one manufacturer? And don't worry, am I gonna have limited options? No, most tile manufacturers all source from the same factories and everything else. So we take our step in that process of having them go to one place. In DC, there are things like David Bacon laws. We can't really control that process, but what we can do is minimize where we source from to make it a little bit easier on our subcontractors in the process. I hope that answers your question. Does your passion ever take over your physical or mental health? No, because I enjoy it. It's not my passion, it's my purpose, right? And when I am tired, I take rest. I do get rest. I don't want to butcher your name. Did you always have this? Did you always have this passion? And did you have to stop? Oh, there's like 3 more questions. I'm so sorry, guys. Karen, do I have to stop? Okay, I'll stop. Sorry, guys.
How about this? One last. You choose one.
Okay. Okay. All right. What advice would you give to someone who doesn't have much design experience to get their foot in the door? At what year of studies would you recommend pursuing that experience and integrating it into the design industry right now? Right. So this is how you get your foot in the door. You constantly knock, and don't make it about them, right? Don't make it about yourself. Make it about them, and make it about building the long-term relationship. A lot of students ask, it's COVID, it's a pandemic, I can't get a job, I can't get an internship. But you can watch a shit ton of Zoom webinars. And if there is someone that speaks to you, you can write them a handwritten note and say, man, I was inspired by this. I loved what you said. I would love to learn more about your journey. How can you build a relationship, right? You should be consuming all this information that is accessible to you right now. That's how you get your foot in the door. That's how you build relationships. Business 101, right? They gotta like you to want to do business with you. So for me, it's the relationship building piece and showing them the true, authentic version of myself. That's how you begin to get experience. How I showed up today, I show up like this. With my super white clients, my black clients, all you get is Kia, right? So it's that piece of relationship building and constantly being relentless, Aaliyah. It's how you get your foot in the door. Start right now. Be sketching, be drawing, not because you got to do it for an assignment, because that's how you build your confidence, right? It's something about confidence building when you take an instrument, not a clicker or a family, and put it on paper that allows you to build confidence. That's how you start to get experience. Experience isn't about a job. It's about immersing yourself in the craft. That's how you get experience. And I've got 2 minutes, and I'll say this to Denise and Karen. If there are more questions, shoot them to me. I will send audio text, and this was like super, 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 super fun, guys. Yeah. Woo! Oh, there's more questions. I have to look at the chat.
Thank you.
Will you save these questions? I don't want to make sure I don't get them.
Sure.
Yeah, they'll be saved.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you,
Good.
Kia.
Good.
Yeah.
Find me on
Thank you.
Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Love to see you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Kia. Fabulous. Absolutely
Thanks,
fabulous. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Fabulous. I'm charged up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Great. Absolutely great.
So Karen, was that everything? Do we got to go back to the other room?
Nope. See you next week. Bye.
No homework?
No, look for the form if you